What's going on, everybody? I'm Sage, and I wanted to actually jump into the PTR this time and kind of go over what to expect and kind of the builds and synergies that we can look forward to inside the pre-patch event going into Dragonflight. Going into Dragonflight, we won't have all of our talent points because we're going to gain those points as we level. So with the lessened amount of points, we have less builds that we can make, obviously, as well as there's a couple things that inside Dragonflight, being kind of in the in between stages, we gain a ton of stuff going into Dragonflight, and we still have a ton of stuff from Shadowlands. So ultimately, the big things that are changing is that our tier sets are going to be inactive. They're going to be listed as legacy content or legacy gear. So our tier sets won't work, and then the other thing is we still have covenants, we still have double legendaries, and we still have conduits. And those start getting kind of confusing because conduits are very much inside our new talent trees. A lot of the covenant abilities are inside our new talent trees, and a lot of the legendaries that we have are inside our talent trees. And the way it seems to be working, from what I've tested, and I'll show it here in the video in just a moment, is that if you select one of these things on any form of the content, it is going to not let the other version work. So, for instance, we have carnivorous instincts as a talent, correct? We also have it as a um, conduit right in here. So, the conduit itself, once at least visually when you're looking at it, here it actually says the 278 version is a 3% buff. It's actually a 6.6% buff at 278 on live anyway. And then if we look over and we mouse over actual Tiger's Fury, it says that it's Tiger's Fury is increased by 21%. So the 6% is actually active there because Tiger's Fury is normally a 15% buff, right? So the 6.6% is added there, but it's not showing it over the conduits. However, if you were to go back into our talents, and if you were to take Carnivorous Instincts, instead of it adding the 6.6% to the 12% you would get from Carnivorous Instincts and obviously to the base 15%, it doesn't do that. What it would do is just give you 27%, which is just Tiger's Fury and the talented Carnivorous Instincts. Which is a lot of what I'm basing some of this information off of, is the fact that you can only take one version of the talents or that one version of that type of ability. So whether you're getting it from conduits, you're getting it from actual legendaries, or you're getting it from talented abilities, you can only have one version of anything in particular, which is kind of cool because in pre-patch it means that we're going to be able to do some weird synergies that we weren't able to do previously, as well as that we won't be able to do in Dragonflight. There will be some new and interesting things. So the first thing I want to go over is AOE, because that's kind of been the larger craze, I would say, about Feral Druids right now, is that we're fully functioning members of the AOE society at this point, going into Dragonflight. And that's very much going to be the case inside pre-patch as well. So this right here is going to be my AOE build that I would recommend for most people, especially with the point buy system. What this is going to require is that you're going to have two legendaries on, which is going to be the Apex Predator's Carvings legendary. So we don't need this talent because we'll have the legendary, as well as you always have the Unity legendary, which is going to be Unity legendary with Night Fae, so you get the 1 minute Convoke, as well as you're going to have Naya, which has kind of been the basics for Feral Druids throughout all of Shadowlands from the very, very beginning. It's pretty much always been Night Fae, it's always been Naya, and yeah, just stick with what we've been running. It works really well. So we're going to have Apex come from an actual legendary, and then we have our 1 minute Convoke come from, once again, another legendary. So this is kind of cool because in my build that I've been playing on beta, I'm not playing with the 1 minute Convoke, and this gives you Apex, it gives you Circle, it gives you 1 minute Convoke all together. This one right here, I know that a lot of people on beta are playing with the Apex or the Adaptive Swarm build, going down here off the sides. It's a lot of points to get down here to the side, and if you do this, then you start running into issues because in AOE you have to, not that you have to, you really want to have Apex Predator, right? Because of, not necessarily just for the free Ferocious Bite procs, because they've nerfed Ferocious Bite, um, but it's for the Sabretooth. Even though they nerfed Sabretooth, that the damage increase from RIP hasn't been changed, so you're still getting 25% increased damage if you're using the Apex proc to proc your Ferocious Bite. So it's making all of your rips deal 25% increased damage, which is definitely worth it in my opinion. In AOE, it's one of those things where it's just it's so good that you shouldn't have an AOE build without being able to utilize Sabretooth. And that's where Sabretooth, Rampant Ferocity, and your Apex, which, like I said, will be on your Legendary, come into play. So if you come down here and you forego that Legendary to have Circle and Life and Death on an actual Legendary, then you run into that sort of problem as well. Now, there could be, and this is a maybe, like if you wanted to go the Necrolord Covenant instead, and instead of having the 1 minute Convoke, you just get, the Giga Adaptive Swarm. You could 100% do that. That is definitely within the capabilities, and then you'd be able to have Adaptive Swarm as well as the Spread Adaptive Swarm with Circle and Life and Death talented, and have the Apex Predator on an actual legendary. Like I have it on my shoulders on my character, so you'd have Apex Predator on your shoulders, you'd have your Covenant Necrolord, and then you just talent down here for Circle and Life and Death. That is definitely going to be a viable option as well. I do kind of project that there's going to be a lot of things that are just going to die super super quickly because there's going to be a lot of broken builds out there. So take it as it comes. The Night Fae for me is probably where I'm going to just stay for now until Dragonflight comes out. And then when Dragonflight comes out, I might be getting rid of our Convoke buddy, and we'll swap around there. So if you want to go Necrolord to get the Adaptive Swarm spread, you can. That could be a very viable build as well. Let's go Necrolord and just have your Unity Legendary take care of this aspect instead of giving you the 1 minute Convoke. But for me, I'm going to recommend stay Night Fae, stay with Naya, because that Mastery Amp is still huge, and that Mastery Amp is just increasing all of your bleeds even more, and you get it every 1 minute, and it'll last for 25 seconds or something like that, which is kind of nuts. So that's going to be my recommendation for AOE. Now, if we jump over and we jump into we have single target, right? So for single target, there's going to be two builds I'm going to recommend. One of the builds you will not be able to do in Dragonflight. The other one, you'll almost get there. So this is the one that like you could do this build going into Dragonflight, and this is going to be the 1 minute Convoke Unity, because you're still going to be Naya and Night Fae, so you're going to get the Unity for 1 minute Convoke, as well as you're going to wear the Circle Life and Death Legendary. I have this on a ring, I believe. So this is going to give you Circle on Life and Death, 1 minute Convoke, and it's going to give you that single target Adaptive Swarm, which is huge. You're getting all of your bleeds in 25%, do their damage 25% less time, as well as you're amping them up by 25% every time Adaptive Swarm is on the target. But this also gives you Carnivorous Instincts, which is going to give you that 12% damage amp, which this is what I was talking about. So like right now I have Carnivorous Instincts on the conduits, but since I spec'd into Tigers or Carnivorous Instincts on the talent tree, it's only 27% and not, jumping up there into the mid 30s. And if we jump over here to Naya real quick and see, I have it, talented right here. Now, the cool thing about this, though, is that you could just swap this out with another talent for this build. You could put Incessant Hunger over here, which Incessant Hunger would build up quite a bit of energy over a course of a dungeon, but this is more of a single target build, so like you're just going to get a very small amount, to be honest, push back at you inside this kind of build. While I have this open, I also want to point out the reason why I don't have Well-Honed Instincts on the Druid side of the tree on our talents. For some of the builds. My previous build for the AOE one doesn't have it, and that is because it should just technically be stronger if you take the conduit over putting 2 points into this, because you're never going to put 2 points into it. I recommend only ever putting 1 point into it, just to get it as a DPS. But for the Circle of Life and Death one, I think that the synergies are pretty obvious. You're going to go into your Lunar Inspiration. You're going to have that amped up Infected Wounds. Your sudden ambush, if you wanted to get it, you could put a conduit in for that one as well, to get that increased, single target damage. I opted not to get this one because I wanted to get more points going down the tree. so that I'd be able to get the 2 carnivorous and get into this adaptive swarm is ultimately what it came out to. Because if you take this away, you have to find another point to put in this, which just takes away from getting down the tree towards this bottom end right here. So it's kind of like where you want to swap around talents and which 2 points are you going to be able to. So this is just a kind of a dead talent in that single target build, but it allows you to get down the tree. The next one I want to talk about is the one that's going to be not capable to do in Dragonflight, and that is the Drought of Deep Focus single target build, which looks stupidly strong when you're just like looking at the synergies. And what Drought of Deep Focus is, if you don't know, because we haven't used it in a hot minute, is that your Moonfire, your Rake, your Rip, and your Rejuvenation are active on a single target. Their effectiveness is increased by 40%. So that's like your rip is our main damage now, right? Previously it wasn't, so this wasn't as broken. It was still our best one for single target, and even like slight cleave, right? In the Castle Nathria is when I remember us using it probably the most. But this was not as broken because Rip didn't do as much of our overall damage. Ferocious Bite did, right? Ferocious Bite was sitting at that 50% threshold, but now that Rip is doing most of our damage, and this just gives it a net 40% increase, and then Rake is also doing a ton of damage because we have our infected wounds in the center of the tree, as well as you can have your sudden ambush with this build as well. So you're getting 60% because of stealth increase from sudden ambush, the 30%, which gives it that 90, and then you're also getting a 40% increase to your rake from your drought. So 130% increase on your rake, and then you also have a 25% increase on your rip, and then over here you have a 20%, so you're looking at 45% increased damage on your rip, as well as you get that 40%, so you're looking at what, 85% increase on just your rip from that, as well as obviously, you get the Tiger's Fury. And since we aren't taking Carnivorous Instincts, our Tiger's Fury is getting amped up by the conduit, so it's 21% increase instead of 15% increase, which is just like, that's a ton of damage. But then you go even further with it, and now that we talent into our Lunar Inspiration, Lunar Inspiration is going to get amped up by 40% as well, because we have the uh, Drought of Deep Focus amps up Moonfire, and we get to have that because of where they've placed it inside this tree now. Over here on the left-hand side, you for this build, you would take Nurturing Instincts because the magic damage increase. You wouldn't actually end up taking the Well-Honed Instincts over here on the side because you wouldn't need either one of those. You'd actually come down here for Heart of the Wild with this build, because Heart of the Wild will increase your Boomy damage for him, so like your or your Moonfire and your Sunfire damage for a short period of time. So it's giving a little bit of that damage amp up, not a massive damage amp up for that 45 seconds, but it would give it to you, as well as the Nurturing Instincts. So I think that this would be kind of fun and silly to play with, because you're getting Carnivorous Instincts, you're getting the drought, circle, life and death, all of that is happening so fast, it's crazy. And then you still have the 1 minute convoke on top of all of that, which is a good burst in between having all of the drought. Um, and it's kind of odd if you think about it, because Convoke, even if you were to go Necrolord and want to go Adaptive Swarm, get the Adaptive Swarm legendary, Adaptive Swarm and Convoke both actually don't synergize well with Drought of Deep Focus, because you want to keep all of the bleeds and stuff on one target and not spread it to multiple targets. And Adaptive Swarm will just leap to other targets, and then Convoke will put bleeds on the other targets. So it's like, you know, for Drought, if you're using Drought, you just want to not have any other targets. It's a Sludge Fist single target, purely patchwork type fight for it. But it is interesting to think of the damage amp that you can get from it, since Rip is so much of our damage now, and that just buffs all of our damage by 40% pretty much, which is crazy to think about, and it would be interesting to test. It would be interesting to play when it actually comes live. So that's pretty much the 3 different builds I wanted to go over. There's 2 single target, one AOE build, kind of 2 technically if you were to go Necrolord for the Adaptive Swarm variant instead of the 1 minute Convoke. And just like I said, keep in mind, and this could change. This could change when when Prepatch does come out. But keep in mind that conduits and talents could not be linking up. There's a good chance that they might not link up, which would make the most sense because there was people that were talking about like, you could just amp up everything so much. There's a lot of classes that can like, oh, I'm going to get 4 stacks of this or 5 stacks of this, and or I'm going to be able to get this all the way up to this amount or something if you can stack conduits and talents that overlap, as well as legendaries. If you were able to stack up the legendary abilities and have that 1 minute convoke reduce the duration of stuff even further, that would be pretty crazy. To have like a you know 30-second convoke or something, if you were to reduce it even further, or have multiple adaptive swarms going off to have 120% chance of it just keep splitting every single time it jumps, stuff like that. But anyway, I just wanted to make a quick video going over kind of what I think we're going to be doing, some of the synergies inside Shadowlands. Um, Last little tidbit is that if you're watching this and you're like, I don't have a Circle of Life and Death legendary, I don't have my Apex Predator legendary, do not craft it. Like, that is a massive waste of money and resources. Don't craft it, especially like Drought and Defocus. Sure, it could be interesting and fun to play with, but that one actually is less than all the other ones because it's super specific on when you would ever use that. It's just like if you have that one raid boss and you're like, hey, you know what, let's try to go ham, let's set some records or something, then sure. But I don't recommend crafting any of this um, if you don't already have it inside Shadowlands. So please save your resources and just enjoy pre-patch and the pre-patch event. Get some gear on those alts, level up your alts and stuff like that in the meantime, or hopefully you get beta and can test out some more stuff and synergies as we get closer and closer to release date. But don't recommend buying it. Past that, I am going to be streaming Dragonflight beta, and then I'll be streaming Dragonflight when it comes out over at twitch.tv/sageshifter. And yeah, if you guys like the video, like and subscribe to the channel. And past that, thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video. All right, bye bye.